Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don Davis. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Today, we'll be with Dr. Stephen Fox and interviewing him and talking to him about his company. But before we get into that, I just wanted to mention quickly the new company that I founded at the beginning of the year is D3 Digital Marketing. We focus in on helping companies establish their digital presence. So if you're currently dealing with any of the struggles with regards to your website not performing or your digital media presence not doing exactly what you want it to do, please reach out to us and let us know how we can help. In this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Dr. Stephen Fox. Dr. Fox is an experienced entrepreneur, doctor, educator, and author. He's also the founder and chairman of Akelos, a biotechnology company developing a non-additive, non-opioid drug for the treatment of neuropathic chronic pain. So with that, welcome, Dr. Fox.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So would you mind telling the listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. By profession, I'm a doctor of dental surgery. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I look for to start companies that I think are important medically or dentally to help the general public. I've been on faculties, the Harvard School of Dental Medicine and New York University School of Dentistry. I've been the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year and received the Medal of Freedom from the United States Senate.
Wow, that's amazing. It's an amazing background. And what led you to found Aculos?
Well, I recognize that we're in the middle of the worst healthcare crisis in the history of the United States, the opioid crisis. Former heads of FDA have said that, as well as two former presidents. 100,000 people a year are dying. Opioids, as well as antidepressants and anticonvulsants, don't help people with neuropathic pain, and there are 500 million people in the world with neuropathic chronic pain. So this to me is the holy grail. It's very important to have a non-opioid, non-addictive drug to write prescriptions for patients that are in pain from diabetes, chemotherapy, shingles, post-surgical pain. It's a massive problem.
Yeah, so I wanted to, I mean, you just touched on them, and I was aware of, neuropathic pain coming from chemotherapy, but it also sounds like if you have diabetes that you could have neuropathic pain as well. Are there other causes that I'm missing here?
Well, neuropathic pain is pain in the peripheral nervous system. In diabetes, you get terrible pain in the hands and in the feet.
Mm.
My own father, who was a surgeon, uh, and a veteran of two wars, tough guy. He had to steal my triplicates for Percodan 45 years ago in order to get through the night from the pain. So diabetes is a huge problem. Shingles is very painful, and there are chronic conditions that are extremely painful.
Yeah, I remember my dad had shingles, and he had said at one point it's just unbelievable pain that
Exactly.
he would have on his side where his shingles patch was, and yeah, I mean it just sounds absolutely horrendous. So was the technology something that came out of a university, or was it something that
Yeah.
you helped to create?
Yes, we licensed this from a tremendous team at Weill Cornell Medical here in Manhattan. They have been doing research for about 10 years on on the problem, and we have a great team of four researchers at Weill Cornell.
Okay. And then what is the current focus of your team at Aculos?
Well, we have a drug. We received notice of issuance for a patent, and they're focused on making that drug better all the time uh, and combining it with a platform so that it uh, attaches itself to the neurons, the HCN1 ion channels, and inhibits them so that we inhibit pain. Uh, so they're constantly focused on improving the drug and testing it on animals. We're pre-IND. We've had tremendous results in our in vivo studies, safety, efficacy, availability. and it doesn't get into the brain. So we've had tremendous clinical results so far.
That's good. And then, I mean, do you have, are you published anywhere with the results?
Well, all along the way, they're published in a half a dozen periodicals. We're actually preparing another publication, which I can't disclose now, in a very prestigious journal of anesthesiology. So yes, we're always published, peer reviewed.
Very good. Yeah. And given the opioid epidemic, are you getting a lot of engagement, with the things that you're doing there?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by engagement.
So, I mean, investors and just people in general, just wanting this as soon as possible.
Well, yes, I can give you a little history. While Cornell and Columbia University put about $8 million into this a while back, I raised from friends and family about $1.2 million. I also received, and Cornell received cumulatively over time, $5.5 million in NIH grants, which says a lot about the quality of what we're doing. And I'm out there right now with a private placement to raise $14 million to take us through phase 1 testing.
And it's a really tough environment, I would imagine for most companies. I just wondered whether or not if the environment was any different at all, for what you faced versus what other organizations are facing. But I just don't know.
Well, it's a tough environment in multiple ways. Firstly, most companies that have tried to develop pain drugs have failed.
Mm,
So they're afraid of it. Why, I don't know. To say that because other people have failed, I shouldn't try seems ridiculous to an entrepreneur.
right,
There's an old expression I use, you miss all the shots you don't take.
right.
So every drug had to go through a difficult process getting through FDA approval and getting to market. So I'm not dissuaded by that. And I've had major companies years ago when I raised $80 million and changed oral care. Major companies told me, oh, you can't do it. Well, you know what? We did do it. And all the commercials 30 years later mimic ours from 30 years ago. So they have a I got to keep my job kind of mentality where an entrepreneur says, I'll jump off a cliff and figure it out along the way. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's a good question to ask you as well. I mean, what other companies along the way have you founded, and what were their focus? I mean, you mentioned some of the things that you've done in the past that just might also help our listeners just better understand you as well.
Sure. 35 years ago, I licensed the technology from the National Institute of Standard and Technology, the federal government, and combined that with a license agreement from the American Dental Association and put calcium products in every store in America, 42,000 stores. Raised $80 million, had a Nobel Prize winner working for me, and dean at the Harvard School of Dental Medicine. And we have a tremendous team now also, and I'll tell you about that. And that stock became the best performing stock in the United States in the first quarter of 1997 across 3 exchanges by 300%. So I kind of proved that I could do it. I don't say it arrogantly, but like I said, you miss all the shots you don't take. And I think I can do it again because this is so important. I mean,
Right.
this could save 100,000 lives and help people in pain and mitigate the opioid crisis. So it's worth trying. We now have a tremendous team at Cornell, as I said, but we also have a Nobel Prize winner, former chief counsel to the FDA, former Senate Majority Leader, chief of pain at Boston Children's Hospital at Harvard, and we really have a tremendous team. Former heads of neuroscience at Merck, Lilly, and Pfizer. So we really have a tremendous team working on this.
Yeah, it does sound like a tremendous team, and just great overall engagement. What are some of the significant challenges that you're working on, currently with the company?
Well, to get to phase 1, uh, there are lots of tests that have to be done: pharmacokinetics, toxicity. Uh, the challenges I think we'll meet. We just need the money to do it. That's the most significant challenge. Uh, as I said, a lot of companies have failed. The macro environment's not so great. Stock market's not doing so good, so people aren't investing as much. So it's a lot of pounding of the pavement, but that's what I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, these are definitely challenging times with regards to investors, and certainly the banking, the recent small bank issues, haven't helped any of the situation either. Because I think everybody more or less was calling that, hey, look, it looks like we're going to come out of this thing, sometime later this year, where we'll see, more investments open up. But then
Sure.
those views shifted the moment that the small bank issues started with Silicon Valley Bank. So, um,
The pendulum always swings. I've seen economic cycles for a very long time, and when it looks worse, that's when it turns around and gets great. So
yeah,
you have to just keep slugging it out, and it'll all turn around.
yeah, and Wayne Gretzky is well known for saying that thing for you need to skate for where the puck's going to be, not necessarily where the puck is, and
Exactly.
it's the
Exactly.
same exact thing. If you're not out there already, whenever that moment changes, it's going to be too late again because
Right.
you'll be just getting ramped
Right.
up for all the other guys that are
Right.
already out there presenting as well.
Exactly. You have to see the opportunity and go for it.
Yeah. And then where do you see the biggest opportunities for Akelos, in the near future?
Well, again, I think we're solving two of the world's biggest problems
Mm,
medically. It's really the holy grail. So I can't ask for more than that as a challenge. And I don't really see us doing anything other than that. And making our platform better, which is an anchor tether drug model, to potentially deliver other drugs to other sites with tissue specificity to help with other disease states. But that's out there in the future.
yeah. And then, so Dr. Fox, there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Oh, I like to get up every day. I'm an optimist and go to work. If I get time off, I get bored so quickly I can't explain it. So personally, it's self-fulfillment for me to be working on something important. It inspires me that my mother had chemotherapy, that my father had diabetes. It inspires me as a doctor that, I see people that have broken into my office 3 times for addictive drugs. I've seen the doctors write prescriptions for neuropathic pain that don't work. Anticonvulsants, antidepressants, and opioids don't work. So there's plenty of inspiration to go around for this, and 100,000 people a year are dying. The opioid crisis, like I said, is the worst healthcare crisis in the United States. So people should be rallying around this. I'll give you a statistic. In the last decade, $32 billion was spent on cancer, which is important, but 120 million has been spent on neuroscience, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That includes Alzheimer's, that includes neuropathic pain. MS, I mean, it's insane. They gave up.
It's the interesting thing for me about that statistic is, I mean, so I've had people on the show that focus in on neurology and the issues that are there, and some of their comments overall have been that they as well have just said that, look, we just don't feel like the level of excitement is the same for us versus cancer drugs as well. So yeah, I mean it is really interesting given all of the people that are impacted by this on an annual basis as well.
Sure. I mean, it's all important. Cancer's obviously important,
Oh sure.
but you don't ignore Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, you know, neuropathic pain just because you haven't succeeded. That's the height
Mm,
of stupidity, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then what concerns you?
Well, I mean, obviously getting the funds, as I've alluded to, and getting the proper tests and having uh, everything move along a timeline in a way that we can get a drug to market. Uh, so that's plenty to concern me right now.
Yeah, yeah, especially, I mean, it was interesting. So I was commenting yesterday on LinkedIn, with regards to somebody that had posted, the impact that artificial intelligence and machine learning could have on clinical trials. And the one thing that I repeatedly say is that, one, it seemed to me like we definitely changed a few things during COVID to try and accelerate a vaccine to market. And so I'm always curious whether or not if the FDA learned anything in that process that they, then could take something like the opioid crisis and then say, let's figure out how to get this thing, to market faster or whatever. Again, you need the funds to run the tests. It's not like, we can skip the tests, but at the same time, it's, the key question stays in my mind that, whenever you have such an impactful potential drug, why wouldn't, somebody take the same sort of point of view? Hey, look, couldn't we help this along? And then given the fact that so many drugs fail in stage 3 clinical trials, where we've wasted all this time, almost nearly a decade, and then we get to the very tail end, have spent so much money, and then we figure out, oh, it's not going to work. So I'm not as familiar overall with, some of the main failure cases that a lot of people have with drugs. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that stays in my mind over and over again. It's like, the next cancer drug could be out there, and we're wasting our time focusing on things that are, just not going to make it.
Well, it's a big dartboard. You've got to take a lot of shots at the dartboard to get a few drugs that work. The FDA is totally aware of how to fast track something when they see something good.
Mm-hmm.
So the government is great, and it's very protective of the public also, because there are side effects to every drug. But don't forget that there was a book called the PDR, which was 3 inches thick, and it had thousands of drugs. So this society has managed to produce a tremendous array of valuable drugs. And if, the percentage of success is low, it's surely worth it at the end of the day, because it helps hundreds of millions of people. So that's my attitude towards the whole thing. The percentage of failure doesn't matter. And even the amount of money that was spent doesn't matter. What matters is that there are productive drugs that help people. That's the
Yeah,
way I see it.
I appreciate that view. Yeah, and I mean, to that same point, I mean, I've even commented on the show that one of the things that we, routinely see is that, there are routine drug releases as well, but at the same time, and it's got to be really hard as a physician, which I'm not, to keep up with all of the information that's coming at you for all of these drugs and everything that you need to
Sure.
know regarding, administering them. But, at the same time, it's, whenever you're looking at kind of a critical situation like the opioid crisis, I just, kind of come back to that idea of, it'd be great to see you guys, not only be successful, but also, have a pathway to be out there in the public quickly as well.
Well, I think the pathway is there. And as we progress, I think it'll accelerate. When people see positive results, they hop on board. So that's the way I see it. Positive results are a catalyst for money coming in and for tests to accelerate.
Absolutely. Last question. What excites you?
Oh, you know, getting up in the morning and attacking this problem, seeing my patients, thinking about the possibilities, and playing with my grandchildren.
Oh, excellent. I love that one. I was actually just writing to my wife. My grandkids are coming to stay with us for the second large time span in their lifetime this summer, and there's an
Great.
opportunity to really get out and spend a lot of time with them. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Good for you. Good for you. Enjoy.
And Dr. Stephen Fox, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.